transition between fiction and memoir, and where is the line between what is fiction and what is memoir, and how would you describe that transition, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that that fiction is slightly less true than nonfiction. And the nonfiction that I have been writing has really been more, well, I mean, it's memoir, right? And I feel as though if you are writing a memoir, it is already infused with so much self-narrativization, whatever that word is, right? Like you're remembering it. I mean, I don't know if you feel this way, but whenever I read a memoir and there's dialogue in it,
Right.
you know what I mean? You're like calling attention to the fact that this is kind of a fabricated truth document, right?
Yeah.
So maybe in that sense, it wasn't really such a huge move to go from fiction to nonfiction. But that said, I guess what interested me about the challenge of writing nonfiction, because it is in theory more true, is trying to, I think, fairly represent other people, because they actually do exist. And even though I really went out of my way to obscure all the people so that they wouldn't recognize themselves, I did all kinds of hybridizing and changed locations, and because I didn't want anyone, I guess, to feel spied upon or that I'd broken a confidence or anything. That just put I don't know, I found that kind of moral imperative maybe to be really kind of fruitful, or I don't know, it meant everything kind of mattered a lot more to me.
A few summers ago, and it probably was many summers ago, because time is,
It was 55 summers ago.
Yeah, right, 55 summers ago in Maine, when you and Leanne were working on the whole project where you were photographing yourselves in the clothes. But there's, I mean, that was just like an amazing project.
So the project
that?
was, I mean, I'll tell you what happened. Okay, so the project was, my friend and I decided that Linda McCartney and Yoko Ono must have been really, really good friends, but that they had to actually pretend they were enemies for the sake of like the narrative of the Beatles breaking up and whatever. And so then we decided that they actually were lovers. And so we bought all these clothes, and then we dressed up, and I don't know, we just
At the thrift shop,
and we just ran around and did a lot of things as Linda and Yoko. And it was just called Linda and Yoko. And then we made a book. And then
took pictures.
And we tons of pictures,
Yeah.
and some with some people who are actual photographers, and then other people who whatever aren't. And so and then we printed it up at Kinko's or whatever, and then we just forgot to pick it up. So it's like in a box.
But it was highly engaging, and I mean, the whole thing was like amazing, and you were so into it, and it was a real project. It was a conceptual art project, or what did Adam
I don't
call it
know.
last night? A post-conceptual art project, I guess.
Yes, pre.
But so when I was Googling around yesterday, just to, again, interesting to excavate someone's life who you think you know, and then you learn other things. I found a Tumblr that Heidi had done for many years, about 10 years ago. And it's really, really good. And so you should all look it up. Google Tumblr, which doesn't have an E in it. No one remembers Tumblr anymore, but it's still there because the internet lives forever. And if you Google Heidi Julavits Tumblr, her Tumblr is amazing. And there's all kinds of incredible things. And one that I was going to read, but I'm sparing her, but you have to read, is where she mashes up Judith Kranz and V.S. Naipaul, having encountered their books in the Random House lobby.
Right next to each other.
Right next to each
Because,
other.
they are always compared to one another. and they
Stars of Random
frequently
House.
are. Yes.
But it's really very, very funny, and there's all kinds of great stuff in there. And maybe, do you want to show one of your?
Yeah.
She did a whole series of videos to promote as sort of a book tour in boat.
Yeah, so the idea was that I was doing my book tour in my boat. So I have a small rowboat in Maine, And so the original idea was, there is a safety and preparedness video, but I'm not going to show that one. I'm just going to go straight to so it started out, I was like, we'll do a safety and preparedness video. And then the idea was that I was going to get questions from my audience. And then I just got one question, which actually wasn't a question that anyone asked me. I pretended that someone had asked me this question, which is, why are you so worried? And then I just made many, many videos trying to answer the question, why are you so worried? And so I think this is
she turned out to be not only a visual artist, but a great actress. So she's actress, director, editor.
Okay, so this is why are you so worried? I think it's number 3. It was a multi-part answer. My first appearance in a major newspaper as a child worry star.
Heidi Julavits, 2, didn't exactly appreciate the noise made by fire engine sirens in
Captions just seemed a little
Yarmouth's Clam Festival parade.
suspicious to me.
Even her dog, Schultz's apparent calmness couldn't prevent her tears.
For starters, I never cried as a kid.
No. Well, no, you didn't cry. What?
I see someone thinking critically about what is clearly an absurd tradition.
Your father went in and said, okay, there's no pin sticking in her.
4th of July parades always have a lot of really loud, around 110 fire engines as a part of them, to 120 decibels. Nobody likes that, which can cause hearing damage.
She's breathing.
I mean, the real question is, why isn't everyone crying?
There's no animal in the crib.
Why isn't the cowboy crying? What does any of this have to do with clams?
Most everybody enjoyed the parade.
This is just another example of a female being pointlessly emotional
She's okay. Let her cry.
because everybody else is having fun.
So no, she's never cried again.
So, how did you feel? What was it like to?
Why am I
First you
so
were-
worried? Why are you so worried?
No, but they're so good. There's so many of these videos that were so good. It was almost a whole addendum to the book.
Yes, yes. And I was, in fact, responding to a certain response that I got to the book, which was like essentially accusing me, not accusing me. It classified the whole thing as just this like worry document, and it really made me think about how many times when you are actually critically engaging with something and asking questions because it's just not making any sense, you're accused of worrying. And, and I was just unpacking that a little bit, And it related a little bit actually to the avalanche survival course that I went on, that I wrote about, because it was actually it was essentially about how there is no worry. There is no worry. Like there's actually just being, what's the word? You have acute situational awareness. And if you do not have acute situational awareness, you will die in an avalanche. You know what I mean? And so,
Right.
Which is not to say that every minute of your life you're going to die in an avalanche, but I felt like it sort of, it kind of validated a way of thinking. Not thinking. It validated a way of interacting with the world, which I feel gets pathologized, and I actually I feel like it's problem solving, and it's like future projection, and I just really love it. I'm actually not worried. I'm having a great time.
Well, sailing is the perfect sport for you.
Yes.
Because it involves a lot of
Yes.
preparation and acute,
Yes.
what did you call it, situational awareness?
Acute situational awareness, yes. And so, interestingly enough, so I did start, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago now, because I, in the summer times, live in that beautiful, very full of water place. I decided I was going to start sailing, and I was going to learn how to sail, which I arguably should already have known how to do because I grew up on a sailboat every summer of my life, and I never, I just used it as like an opportunity to sleep. And so, and read. And anyway, so, but I was really feeling this incredible flatness, like my brain just felt so flat. And everything I thought felt really flat, and all the problems that I was encountering in my brain felt like flat problems. And I really, I really, really, really wanted to have a 3D problem solving experience. Like I really needed to just be like, okay, how can I take everything that's in here and put it out there and use it to like engage with unknowns. And so sailing is so much something where you have to be looking ahead. You know, you have to use your whole body. You have to like feel wind. You're like you're just sort of alive in all of these more ways that felt more physical to me than just sitting at my desk. You know, and so I think that was maybe weirdly like to look at those videos. I feel like the antecedent for those was actually like sailing and starting to use my body in a more like creative problem solving way in space. Instead of just sitting at my desk getting a flatter and flatter ass, you know?
And but it makes a lot of sense, right? It's like as you start expanding from, let's say, the novel as such into the memoir, into the unknown in many directions, right? And your work is now taking you in I don't know if you want to talk about what you're working on here, because it's very three-dimensional.
I mean, maybe what's interesting about what I have been working on here, and this is again like one of the most incredible side effects, I think, of working in a place like the American Academy where you're encountering all sorts of different people who do all sorts of different things, is that people who don't necessarily are not familiar with what you are focusing on will come at you with like some really much more sort of radical new directions to think about things. And I think one of the things, again, this maybe also gets back to like honoring your like physical responses to things. So yeah, like when I was asked to go on a book tour, I was like, my body doesn't want to go on a book tour. You know what I mean? It doesn't want to. And I felt that very deeply, that I didn't want to. And I feel like I've now turned that back into when I'm working and I'm writing, I'll like encounter places in, like I had to write something the other day, or I thought I did. I thought I had to write something because ostensibly this is what I'm writing about. And I didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to do it. And I did it anyways, and I made myself, and I did it for 10 days. And then I was like, I don't want to do this. Like I actually feel this like, and so then I realized that I'm not going to do it. And in fact, it's the absence of that thing that's going to provide the centrifugal force of this book, not the presence of it, you know?
Interesting.
And some of my favorite books are those kind of books.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if anyone here has ever read Edie. I think it was called Edie, An American Girl.
I read that about Edie Sedgwick.
Yeah,
I read
not an
that.
American Girl doll.
Yeah.
Maybe they did make an American Girl doll out of her.
What
Tragic, drug-addicted American Girl doll.
Yeah.
But it was about Edie Sedgwick, who was like a Warhol factory star. And the way the book is structured is George Plimpton and Jean Stein, the two editors, just went and interviewed everybody who had anything to do with her family growing up and the Warhol scene and everything. And then they sort of like DJ'd this whole,
That's really good.
all of these interviews together. So you have these recurring characters as these people come back in and out. But what's so amazing is that the one person who does not speak in that book is her. And that would seem as though it's like a silencing and a, you know, but there's also a way that has a lot of power. I feel like all these other people are cycling around her and she has the most gravitational force, you know? Maybe we'll talk about Yoko Ono again, because also I feel like...
Yes, misrepresented, misunderstood.
Yes, and also she was someone who, again, to like what's the word I'm looking for? Reframe silence. Her piece, Cut Piece, which is, right, she was, I think it was the 60s, late 60s, and she was in a gallery and she had on like a dress and there were some scissors in front of her, and the piece was that people would come up and they were meant to snip a tiny bit off of her dress. And instead it ended up almost being like she had like leached this like terrible violence out of this audience, and people started to like, they literally cut so much of her dress off that she was like having to hold up her bra strap because she was going to be naked, right? And anyways, I think about that a lot as silence being something actually quite powerful.
And so the project that you've been working on now, do you want to talk a little bit about it, or do you want to show the video first, or is the project is in flux, but you did make a video?
So I guess I would say this
Yeah.
about it is that the project is in flux, and the video that I'm about to show is one that I made. Again, this is just goofing around, but it made me think that maybe the part that I am really struggling with is I did not buy the entire estate, but I bought a lot of the estate of a French actress who I found on eBay. And so for so many years now, I've been telling people, I'm going to write this book that's about this actress. And I bought her estate on eBay. And I think talking about it so much has made me less interested in it, but also I haven't written it. So that's also a suggestion that it's not the right, there's something there, but the head on is not the way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're attracted to the material for one reason, but maybe
but the
something
head
else
on's
comes
not,
out.
that's not how it's
Yeah.
going to happen. Anyways, but so I came and then I made this video, and I'm wearing the actress's hat in this. I'm not wearing her dress. I should be wearing her dress. But I think that's what, I started to think a lot about how like adding value to objects. And for example, I once went actually with the woman I did the Yoko Ono thing, Leanne Chapton. We went to the estate sale of a famous actress. And she was in...
Where?
What?
Where?
American famous actress. She was in The Long Goodbye. Anybody?
Lauren Bacall.
Thank you. Lauren Bacall. It was Lauren Bacall's...
Lauren Bacall's estate
Yes,
sale?
there was an estate sale. I mean, it was at Christie's. It wasn't like
Oh,
on
oh,
eBay.
okay.
No.
Like
No,
in
no, no.
Maine?
No, it was just like
Yard
at this,
sale?
No, it was like a proper estate sale at Christie's.
Yeah.
But I mean, as anyone who's bought things at estates knows, if there's a photograph of the person wearing the thing, or if there's a photograph
Yeah.
of the person sitting in the chair, suddenly the item has like exponentially more value than if it's just an item that she owned, right?
Right.
Anyway, so I've just been thinking a lot about that and how to like maybe, I don't know, think about value in that way and how to make value by inhabiting these objects.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So do you want to
Okay,
show
right.
the
So then
second
this
video?
is again. This
Yeah.
is just goofing around. This is
This is
and
an
this was also
extension
my
of the book.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, right?
knows?
I mean, I guess I don't know, but it feels like maybe if the actress is going to exist, it's maybe going to be, I don't know. I'm working it out still.
Okay.
Anyways, goofing around, and this was also sort of me, because I had been here before. It was actually incredibly sad for me to be back here on one level because I felt like with every day I was here, I was erasing the past memories I had of being here with my children and my husband, and it was like actually one of the most amazing like 5 months of my life, and maybe their lives too, I don't know. And so being here felt very dangerous somehow, that I was going to erase it all. And so this was sort of me dealing with that too. I also forgot to say that the rules for the videos that I made during the summer and then also for this one is that everything had to be kind of, well, obviously I'd bought the actress's hat already like 10 years ago, but everything had to be kind of found. It was all just like stuff that was in it was junk basically, and I was trying to like make the junk seem more valuable. And also the music, just so you know, I don't have like really bad music taste. I could only use the music that came free with CapCut. So just I feel like I need to say that so people don't get the wrong idea about my musical taste.
So, well, I love this. I love the videos. I think it's really interesting. I'm really interested in what more you want to make from this, the thing that you started as a writing project. It's going to be really interesting to see what you make with the time you have here with
Yeah, I mean, I think what is sort of what feels really lucky about this time in my life is that I have a job, and so I don't need to make money necessarily from, I mean, it's not bad too, but I don't need to make money from what I am making. And so I can kind of, for the first time, or I should just recognize that it's possible for me not to be thinking about things as consumable necessarily in a form that are the forms that I've worked in and are the industries that I've worked in and the money-making systems that I've been a part of. And so now the interesting challenge is sort of like, well then, okay, if I'm freeing myself from those sort of networks, but I don't necessarily need to make money to pay my bills with this stuff.
Yeah.
I still want people to be able to consume it in some scrutable form. Like it's got to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I guess, what I'm thinking about a little bit. Like, so let's say I don't want to head on deal with the actress in writing, but I do this other thing. So then, like, how does that work? I don't know,
But the will to communicate with other people is the thing that drives the work, regardless of whether it's commodified.
Yeah, and then I mean, whatever. Then maybe it is just on. Yeah, maybe it's just on that secret Tumblr account, or I don't know, right? I mean, that's the other thing that sort of feels very exciting about it all is that there are so many ways to just if you're not trying to make money off of it, you can get it seen. You know what I mean? So, but I am interested in it being like not consumer-ish, but consumable, right? That's what and so that's like, so how do you write a book that then has some chapters that are weird videos? I don't know how that. I
know, we were talking about
like,
that.
No, I mean, like, I don't know what that looks like or how you guide people through those. I don't know.
Might just have to be a film.
Maybe.
Sorry.
Maybe, but then what do you do with the book? You just throw it in the. You just throw
Maybe
it in the
the
ocean.
film becomes a book, becomes a.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of it being simultaneous, though, right?
Sure. It can be all those things.
It can be all those things.
So maybe would some of you like to ask questions? I want to open it up for other people's questions.
The lights come on. Oh.
No? So, well, I think that one thing no one ever asks about, but is very interesting, or I like to hear about, is what is your daily practice like, or what is your process like? I think that's something that no one ever asks, and it sounds boring, but it's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, so when I wrote The Folded Clock, it was the first time I ever tried to have any kind of like meditative thing happen. And so I'd found this old tap handle. It was like a hot water tap handle, and it was in the wall of our house, and we didn't drain our pipes properly, and the pipes burst, and then we had to pull the walls down, and we found this, why? There was also a bone. There were like cow bones in there.
Really?
People put all kinds of things in the wall. I don't know. Anyway, so there was like a tap handle, obviously a murder weapon. Someone had killed someone with it.
Or
And
a
then they had
cow.
to put it, they killed the cow. And so whatever, it was like this beautiful thing, and it had this perfect weight, and you could hold it in your hand, but like, what do you do with it? Like, it was too heavy to make a necklace out of it. And I don't know, whatever. There was like nothing to be done with it. And so I just started, and I don't draw, to be clear. And I've never been drawn to drawing. And so but I was like, I'm just going to draw this thing every day. And so I drew it every day because I just had this like confusing, almost erotic relationship with this tap handle. And so I was like, if I draw it every day, it like got me into this zone, and then I would start writing, you know? So now when I'm here, because I will say one thing that feels really important about whatever it is that I'm working on here is it feels very geographic, it feels very land-based, it feels very geographical. And so I have been drawing my every day, whatever my walk is or whatever I do, whatever shape I've made in space by moving around in the space, I have drawn it. So I draw that
Like a
every
map.
morning. Yeah, it's like a map, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like really literally, it's like if you were to, it's like your phone would do it, right? If I had that feature enabled, right? Where it shows you what you did. But like to have to remember it, and then actually to have to be like, okay, wait a minute, like where was, like to actually have to kind of situate yourself. And I actually use my compass on my phone a lot. I'm often just like north, south, like I really am just trying to
Interesting.
situate myself.
So you take a walk.
No, I don't take a walk. I stay in my apartment, in my beautiful apartment, and I don't leave, and I don't get out of my pajamas, and I draw my map, and I drink so much coffee, and then I sit there and I work.
But you drink the map. You draw the map
Yes.
of the walk you did the day before?
Yes, day before.
Okay, day before.
Oh, yeah, no, it's the day
Okay.
before. Yeah.
And you try to remember, like,
Yes.
how you moved through space the day before.
Yeah.
That's so
that
interesting.
also makes me go do things, because otherwise, like I have 2 days, it's very sad, but I have 2 days where it's just like a dot. Because I didn't
So
go
are you-
anywhere.
are you hanging
so
it up
like
on the
you
wall?
have too many dots, and then you're like, oh, it's sad. Like I gotta go.
Are you hanging it up on the wall?
No, they're almost like in a deck, and then I will like shuffle through them. But it's also a way, honestly, because I'm not alone here, I know, but at this phase of my life, I just literally don't exist in time anymore, never mind space. So I like weeks and months and whatever, just like flow by, and I think because this time feels so precious to me, I'm like, I want to remember. I want to remember every day. So every day is on a postcard. I do it on these like tourist postcards, like Berlin postcards. I've spent so much money. It turns out it's really expensive to make a postcard every day, especially if you go to those tourist sites around like.
It's true.
Yeah, like don't go to the ones near Brandenburg.
So you do a drawing on the postcard.
I do a drawing on the postcard. So the idea was I was totally ripping off on Kawara. I was going to, because he did a whole postcard series where he would just basically write what time he woke up in the morning and send it to like his friends. This was in the 70s, 60s, 70s. And so I'm ripping him off 100%. And it was going to be my way of keeping in touch with my family. I was going to send them a postcard every day that had my travels on it, but I did not do that. I kept them all.
I feel like that's what's become of postcards. It's so hard to mail them that you then
Oh my
bring them
God,
home with you.
It's so true. Where are the stamps? The stamps are really hard to find.
used to be
I
such a
found.
thing to
Also, I don't speak
communicate.
German. I'm scared of the post office, so
Right, so you just come home with a stack of postcards and
I'll just
keep
hand
them.
them. No,
Hand
yeah, I
them
probably.
or keep
They, I
them.
mean, let's be honest. They don't care. No one's gonna no one's gonna like them as much as me. So
Well, it's also because you FaceTime with them all the time, right?
never.
You never FaceTime.
No,
How do you communicate with them?
we text.
Only text.
Mm-hmm.
No FaceTiming.
It feels so awkward. We all just got done with so much Zoom schooling. I don't think anyone wants to do that.
Oh, that's interesting.
I feel like we
Yeah.
associate that with like very bad times in our lives. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
I hate to FaceTime, but everyone in my family loves it.
yeah. No, fortunately, everyone on my family's on the same page with FaceTime. So
Interesting.
we just don't really look at each other and don't send postcards to each other. And I give people money when they ask for it. And yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's amazing. And I love that you're going to have all these postcards as your own. Then you can do something
Well,
with
what's
you-
also
you can
so
do
great
something.
about it is how you quickly forget. So now I actually really, if it was just the shape, I'd then be like, oh my God, I don't even like 3 days later remember where I went, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So the
And you don't
exercise
write
of having
down.
well, I do, sometimes I'll write like, I was just writing subway stops, not subways, whatever, S-Bahn stops. So I could see like that's where I got off and then walked around and got back on, you know? So
Otherwise,
those
you'd
would be-
always have the line at the
Yeah,
beginning
yeah.
because you'd be taking the S-Bahn from
Right,
Wannsee
no, so
to-
I'm not, yeah, it would just be
Okay.
like S-Bahn from Wannsee, S-Bahn from Wannsee, S-Bahn from Wannsee.
Right.
Yeah, so, but yeah, it's amazing how quickly you forget even just like 3 days ago. I mean, it really is almost, it's actually just like an Alzheimer's treatment that I'm giving myself in advance.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what comes of it, whether the postcards themselves are the end product or whether that becomes like notes of a kind to
Yeah.
actually write something else.
Yeah, it's
Or
possible.
do something else because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cheesy to say this out loud, but
Yeah.
it's like the journey is the destination, right? If you knew what the end product was going to be going
Right.
into it, what would be the point of doing it?
No, it's
I mean-
true. And I do think that there really is this, I don't know, like I just really now know when I'm having fun and when I'm not having fun. And like when I'm having fun, I actually just don't even care what comes of it. I'm just like, that's what I want to do. I just want to do something that feels interesting and fun to me. And so the postcards do, and these videos do. And I don't know, when I encounter that, I'm just sort of like, well, why would you do anything else and who cares what it comes to?
And taking a break from teaching, is that also, do you think that's also really liberating? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not only
Okay, here's what I will say.
in terms of your daily practice, but
Yes.
also in terms of being a role model to people who want to do what you have done very well for many years.
I would say that I actually, for the most part, do not experience students as being a drain on me. Obviously, like there's a lot of work involved, and to have a cleaner head is always ideal. But what I find to be most difficult is just dealing with the deep, deep, deep dysfunction, and I'll just say it's either corruption or just total incompetence of an institution, you know? And so I think that's actually what ends up really taking up headspace in a way that does not feel productive in any way, and that I'm very relieved to have a break from.
But with your students, you don't feel like they don't then expect you to just continue to write novels as such, even though they're entering into that.
You mean because I'm teaching them something I don't do?
Well, you do it. You just
They're
aren't
like-
currently
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah, I mean...
I'm just curious what your dynamic is with them.
With them? Well, here's what I'll say about students, is that I don't think that they read anything, so they don't know what you are or are not writing.
Ah. Yes, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Hi, Heidi.
Hi.
It's Tara.
Hi.
Were you ever her student?
No.
Oh.
No, it's Tara.
No, I
It's
know,
not-
but I couldn't remember.
No. We
You
were,
never-
the same age. No, you
But you
didn't
did
start
go-
until I left.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I think,
that's
yeah.
true. We waited tables together. We were really good.
We were very young. And
We were really good at it.
18.
And I always
19.
think that is my backup career.
Me too. I always know that I
Yeah.
can wait tables. I was actually going to ask you, what is it like now? Like, what are the students like? What are they interested in? what is teaching a fiction student like now with AI? I'm really curious about what young people are thinking about literature right now, because it seems so dire from our perspective.
Oh, I don't think it's dire. I'm here to spread some very positive news about all of this. I actually think that the whole AI, well, okay, look, I'm not grading papers that people are writing about like the themes in Charlotte Bronte, you know what I mean? So I think if you are doing that, then maybe AI is like a little more of a threat to whatever your pedagogy is. But I also just think like, okay, look, if your measurement of someone's learning is something that AI could generate for you, then maybe you need a different measurement. You need a different way to assess how people are interacting with the information that you're giving them or the challenges that you're providing them. Okay, however, because it's fiction, I mean, I feel like if you got AI to write a really good story, then that's your story. You know, I don't think that there's any I think that using AI is super interesting from a creative standpoint. And again, I am talking about writing novels and writing things that are not as easily replicatable right now, though they will be in like 2 seconds, right? But I also just think like, isn't that kind of an interesting challenge? Like if you are doing something that a machine can do, well then what can't a machine do? And then maybe that's like where we should be putting our creative energy, you know what I mean? But I'm sure I will be out of a job soon and I'll have a different opinion about this. But for the moment, I mean, I've actually I use AI in my classroom as a way for students to, so they'll turn something in, right? And they'll write a story and whatever the story is about. And I will try to turn their story into an AI prompt. And so then I give AI the prompt to write their story. And then I show them what AI wrote instead of them, right? So you can kind of, and so that is not necessarily be like, see, AI can't do what you do. That's not the point. The point is to actually, if you have to understand your own input system. So if you can break down your own input, right, and then give it to yourself instead of giving it to a computer, like that to me, I guess, is the way that you can use it as almost like a, it's like diagnostic almost. You know what I mean? You can diagnose your own input system. But again, like this is changing like by the nanosecond. So whatever I did last spring will be old and tired by the time I get back in the fall, and you know what I mean? But in general, the students are amazing. I mean, I feel like incredibly, incredibly, incredibly lucky to have the excuse to hang out with 18 to 22-year-olds on a daily basis. Or not daily, once or twice a week. Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I haven't. I'll give it to you after. I was wondering about your process of how you bring your ideas to writing compared to bringing your ideas to a visual representation. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have only really worked as a writer, so most of the time that's the challenge. And so I'll give an example from the last book that I wrote. I was really, really struggling with I was just really struggling with it for many, many reasons, some having to do with the fact that it was about my son, some having to do with the fact that a lot changed from the time that I sold it. Like I sold it and it was supposed to be like a polemic about rapists, basically. And then Weinstein happened and Trump happened, whatever. The world changed, and but I still felt like there was something there. I just couldn't figure out the form. And then this artist came to me and wanted me to write like a essay that was going to go in her book. And she actually asked me this incredible question. She just said, "So what are you into these days?" And I was like, well, I'm really into guidebooks that give you instructions about how to get somewhere, so there aren't maps. I mean, this is like the opposite of map making. It's like verbal maps. So it's like, here's how you get to this place. But these guidebooks are all really old, and the directions that they give are based on, I don't know, trees, you know what I mean? Or like somebody's barn, and these things aren't there anymore. So in theory, the directions that are being given in these guidebooks, you can't use them. You wouldn't be able to find the place because the landmarks are gone. And so when she asked me to do this, then she was like, well, just write me some directions then to some places. And I did that, and then that was what allowed me to kind of unlock how to write the last book that I wrote. So I guess the lesson there is, and I was going to say, I was like, I'm so busy, and I just can't do this thing, whatever, you know? And I will say that every opportunity, I've never, ever regretted like taking an opportunity to do something that feels like not in my wheelhouse, or something that's like I feel like I don't have time for. Like always something gets unlocked, you know?
Yes, an assignment can be a really good
Yeah,
way
an assignment is the greatest thing.
open your mind up.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So then as the introduction to her book, you wrote...
I did directions. So then the other thing that was sort of complicated about it is that I wrote them in the second person. Because, yeah,
Like
you know.
go there,
Go there, whatever. Yeah, exactly. And so then I wrote the whole book in second person, and then I changed it. And I don't know if I should have done that or not.
You wrote this whole book in second person and then changed the...
Yeah. I changed it to first.
How long did that take?
Really long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And I will say, so here's what I think I should have done. So it was true that in the second person it was too tight. It was too tight. It wasn't working, for sure. And so I then wrote it in first, and then it loosened up, and I should have put it back into second. That's what I should have done.
Then again, you
Yeah,
should have
that's what I should have done. Yeah, next time.
Another year.
Yeah, you know, whatever.
Right.
Paperback.
Tasta, did you have a question? Yeah.
I'm just really interested in this idea of trying to find a form, especially coming from a novelist or writer perspective. I mean, I use writing, but it's part of one. So it's very, very interesting to try and find a form. And the idea of how do you insert a video into a book?
Yeah, can you tell me how to do that?
No, but kids would probably say use QR code or something. Not that I ever do.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
You know,
what
a bit
great
like
idea.
Lawrence Stern, you know, like
Solved.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah, but I mean that's not what I'd do. It would horrify me. But yeah, no, I mean that would.
Yeah, no, that's such an interesting idea. Well, you know, it makes me think too. A writer who shall remain nameless, in case this is insulting to them, which I don't mean it to be, but a writer who I was interviewing once, and they and they referenced a lot of things that I just had never heard of before, and so I found myself leaving the book a lot to go Google things. And I asked this writer if that was their intention, to actually, because I think that's kind of an interesting intention, actually, you know, if your idea of how I want my reader to constantly be leaving and going and doing this other thing, like you're kind of guiding them in another medium. I thought that was an interesting idea, and this writer was very, very offended that I suggested that is what he had done they had done on purpose. And so, but I mean, I think about that a little bit, because I actually think that's kind of an amazing idea. If you're giving someone not permission, you're actually like urging them with some direction to go off and do something and then come back.
Exactly, because I was thinking about the novel is, in a way, it is a bit of a straitjacket.
Yes.
In the way that, you know, I don't really have a sort of a form either, but I have to make one each time. But I don't come from the straitjacket of a novel. So I was just thinking, I was feeling the slight kind of empathy and claustrophobia of what you were saying.
So do you think it's harder than to find a form if you have no straitjacket? You know what I mean?
I think it's harder for you than me in a way. But I was just thinking of someone like Anne Carson. She's always trying to expand her. You know, going into theatre, going into this, going to that, going to performance. Drawing, she does.
Yeah.
So I do think it's interesting how a writer expands their form as opposed to how an artist does, because we come expanded in a way.
I mean, it is funny. I feel like somebody at one point said, and I want to credit this person, but maybe I'm going to say it wrong and they don't want to be credited with this, so I'm just going to say, someone said this, that the novel is an inherently conservative form. And I feel like they were saying it almost to explain their conservative approach to it, that was like the form demanded it in a way. And at the time I was like, well, that's really unimaginative to say that. But then I'm like, oh, but maybe that is true. I don't know. There is something that feels a little bit.
Well, constraint can be really productive.
It can be. I agree.
Sure. But
I agree.
something about the novel at that point, I started to think of it. Wow, that is a problem. Actually, how do you?
Yeah. And I mean, the other problem, right, with books, novels, or whatever you're writing, maybe slightly unlike visual art, is that you don't, like with a book, like someone has to sign up and just be like, I mean, now that I have a Kindle, I know how many hours it takes to read a book. So it's like, you're asking someone you're like, 6 hours, stay with me for 6 hours. Like, that's actually going to be really...
That's your privilege. That's the special thing about a novel.
Yes. But then you also have to, that's like something you have to make happen, because a lot of people won't, for maybe good reasons, stick with you for 6 hours. You know what I mean? So I think that does create the conservatism of the novel, that there has to be something like...
But that's the inherent discipline of the novel.
Yes.
Is keeping your reader.
Yeah.
I mean, we have the problem with the person putting the head around the door. I mean, that's the thing. But I mean,
Right.
something about a novel actually demands that attention,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is what that is what you are about, actually. That's fundamental in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, honestly, with novels, now that there is AI, now that there is, like, so many students, I would say, that I have, to talk about them again, because they are raised on a different, with a different narrative template, I guess I would say. Like, their idea of, they don't have the same beginning, middle, end necessarily. Like, Instagram is gonna, or TikTok, or whatever social media platform they're on, what keeps your attention is different, and that's like a different structure entirely. And I see that showing up in people's stories. You can't suddenly be like, where's the arc? You know what I mean? Because that's just like, there is no such thing. There's not an arc, and there's not a beginning, and there's not an end. And so you're engaging with it in a different way. Like, the structure is changing, the narrative structure is changing, and what counts as attention is changing. So anyways, who knows what's going to happen?
I mean, I always wonder now, young people often are texting with like 3, 4, 5, 6 different people, different chats, different group chats at the same time.
Yeah.
So they're literally having multiple conversations at the same time. So
Well,
dialogue
Yeah.
is multidimensional for them, like in their mind. I don't know. I don't know how you would manifest that. I just think about that in a script. Because you see how they're doing it. Like, we have a 14-year-old daughter. She has multiple conversations going at the same time all the time. I mean, not all the time, but when she's on her phone. Maybe that's an obvious thing to say, but how does that change your idea about dialogue? It's not linear.
No. No.
Yeah.
So have you ever gotten like a TikTok lesson from your kids?
No, but I know you did.
I
and
did.
I feel like you've become a total expert.
No. Oh no, I think my son would not approve of that last video that I showed.
Really?
Well, one of the things that he was showing me that I think, to your point, so if you were, let's say I showed that video, I would also have to, well, first of all, it's like 9,000 times too long. And then the other thing that would have to happen is that alongside of it, there would have to be like an inserted screen of somebody playing,
Right.
like that subway, jumping from subway car to subway car. There would be a game that was happening, right? So someone's playing a game.
This can't be the game.
No, that's happening, and then there's another screen where someone's playing a game on the same video.
A different game.
Yeah, no, because they'd just be playing like, I don't know, it's like a Twitch stream or something of someone playing a game.
Boys, I
Right?
don't have any boys. Yeah.
And so anyways, but I was
Twitch
like, oh,
stream.
that's so interesting. I mean, because then you realize like they're both like focused, but then it's also like, it's just like movement, like it almost is adding pacing to this other thing. I mean, it's actually kind of
That's
interesting.
fascinating.
It's actually really pretty interesting,
And scary.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the attention span required to read for 6 hours is also,
Well, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Although it's so relaxing to read for 6 hours. I mean, I mean, you really feel like, sorry, but, you know, I wouldn't mind sitting around and just rereading. I was thinking yesterday, if I had the time, I would just sit and reread all these books.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually realized there was one of her books I hadn't read, which is a funny thing. Like, I was like, oh, I've read all these books. And then I was like, I've never read this book. I never had read her first book. So,
Don't do it. Do not do it.
what a pleasure to sit and read them. I mean, I would do
Really
it.
don't. I mean, I'm saying that with all.
Anyway, are there any more questions? Yes?
Hi, Heidi. RJ from the American Academy.
Oh, hi, RJ.
Hi there. We're talking about the kinds of things that you have written, but we haven't mentioned 22 years ago, you wrote a 10,000-word essay for the first issue of The Believer, and where you had this extremely powerful diatribe about the state of book criticism in America. And I'm wondering, to just sort of take the 10,000-foot view, have things changed in the last 20 years? You're now in academia before you were not, or you're in the academy now and before you weren't. How have things changed for the better, for the worse? Also thinking about TikTok and the different ways that books are written. How do you assess now the state of book reviewing in America?
Well, I don't write them and I don't read them. And so that, here's what I would say. And this I find to be really, really, really the best possible advancement in terms of overall, not just fairness, but just, it used to be that in order to, succeed or to be read or to be taken seriously or to have a career, you had to get into the New York Times book review, and you needed to, maybe the New Yorker would write a review and the New York Review of Books and whatever. There were very, very, very few avenues to achieve a readership, basically, right? And the more you're in these worlds, and I'm sure it's the same with all creative fields, I mean, it's like gate kept to the hilt, right? And so you would have people write an amazing book, and then it just didn't get picked up by these few venues that were there to just sort of anoint you. And that just, no one reads those things anymore. It's like the greatest thing that's ever happened. No one cares anymore what the New Yorker Times, they don't care what the New York Times Book Review thinks. It's like, there are all these other ways that you can get your work out there that readers, like who you really, are touching and reaching through all these social media channels. I don't know. To me, that just feels the most, I don't know. It just, I don't think I quite recognized or understood how stressful it was. Like, it was amazing to write the last book that I wrote and just be like, it doesn't matter if any of these people cover it. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's like amazing, because otherwise your whole sense of self and your identity as a creative person is all wrapped up with a couple of editors at the New York Times Book Review. Like, that's wrong, and it's not happening anymore. So I think that's a cause for celebration, actually.
Hi, I have a question about the folded clock. I read all your, probably not all your novels before, and then I coincidentally started reading the folded clock, and then I saw the reading tonight. So, and you're like, I find so interesting that you're touching on things that you also wrote 10 years ago, like the Edie Sedgwick obsession that you have is in the book. And I was just wondering, because it's like nearly 10 years old, if there's like moments where you think it didn't really age well or something.
Oh, yeah.
Because I read, because I don't want to get too much in it, but before that I read all the novels, and then your voice was kind of more like diffused in the novels and so on, and then here it became so concrete, and then I was just wondering if it's so auto-fictionalized, I mean, that's not a word, of course, that you have so much distance to it that you don't really care so much. But I was wondering if there's like moments in the book where you were like, oh, because I had moments in the folded clock where I was like, oh, would you write the same way.
So, I mean, I think so the concern that I have about not trying really hard to protect people's feelings, what that book really taught me, well, okay, so my daughter wanted to read it eventually, you know, and I thought, of course, that I had been as, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be more careful around anyone than my own kids, right? And then I was like, oh, I should just do a tiny little preview of this before, in case I have to say something to her about it. And I realized that, so the way I think I mean, basically the joke's always on me in that book. You know, I'm always the one who, if anyone's going to be criticized, it's me. I'm the one who's being held up as flawed. But I wasn't sure that she was going to get that, and so there were some moments in that book that I thought I had to say to her, like, by the way, and it was actually really funny. She was sort of like, I know, like she just, but I mean, yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting question, and I think for that reason too, I don't go back and look at that book ever, because I think I am super worried that I will have thoughts for you know, weeks afterwards about how I've done something to somebody. But I mean, for the most part, I feel like it's just my kids that I worry about the most. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, do you feel that that's more the case with that book than the others because it's so personal or so directly personal?
I was wondering about that.
I'm just asking you, yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering about it because I'm like, it's auto-fictional, you know, I'm like trying not to take your voice too much as your voice, but still, I was wondering about that.
Well, you know, it's funny, since I don't teach nonfiction, this is a very strange and foreign term that I learned when I had to go on book tour with a nonfiction book, and there's something called the constructed I, and all nonfiction people talk about it. And it is like you are constructing this kind of fictional persona to supposedly talk about nonfictional things, right? And so it's a performance, you know what I mean? I mean, it is a performance in its way, even though it is a non-fictionally based performance, but it still has that. And I think maybe that is why I did not want to go on a book tour with my last book, because there was I didn't protect myself in that one. Like I was unprotected. I didn't have a constructed I. You know? And I now know why people do that, because it's actually really unpleasant.
Although, crazily, you know, there's so much of yourself in fiction, right? Like, let's just take The Year of Living Backwards, right? There's so many things that are going on in their heads that come from things that, I mean, or to me, you know, knowing you feels like it's still coming from things that go on in your heads. There's so much of that. Of course, you're giving it to a fictional character, but on book tour, people always read everything as being personal, even when it's not. Like that's, I mean, obviously I have much less experience than you, but I think it's, my one experience of going on book tour was that they thought every single thing in the book was true.
Right.
And that was the opposite of what you're talking about, right? It's like, not that you didn't own the fiction, the constructed I, but that they didn't care, even though everything had been fictionalized and most of it was made up and what didn't happen to me, everyone thought everything in it happened to me.
Yeah.
So that's also, that made me feel very stressed or like vulnerable.
Yeah. So Ben Marcus, my husband, he wrote a book and his parents thought it was all about them, and it wasn't. Wow. And so in his next book, he named his characters after his parents.
That's amazing. So I once had a meeting with Harlan Coben, who's a crime writer, And he didn't remember the names of we were talking about one of his books, and he didn't remember the names of the characters of a book that he'd written. And then he told me, well, the reason I don't remember their names is because when I finish writing them, I auction off the names to my readers.
Oh, that's amazing.
And if they donate money to my favorite charities, then I'll name the characters after them. So I change out the names. I use like standard names while I'm writing them, and then I auction off the names so that then they have the names of the readers who basically donate the most to my favorite charities.
Okay, I misunderstood that. I thought they won the name. Like he named them and then they won the name from him. And I was like, and then what did they do? They named their dog?
Their old name. No. No.
That's so interesting. Okay, this is a related story. So one time I was talking to these people and they had friends who were having a baby, okay? And they were maybe going to name their baby Violet Scheidegger. Last name was Scheidegger. They were going to maybe name the baby Violet Scheidegger. And I was like, that's the best name ever. And then they didn't name the baby Violet Scheidegger. So I named one of my characters Violet Scheidegger, and people were upset with me that I took this baby's name that wasn't even a baby's name. You know?
The Scheideggers were upset.
Well, the friends of the Scheideggers. It wasn't even, I mean, maybe they were too. Maybe they were speaking
didn't
on
know the
behalf of the
Scheideggers.
Scheideggers. I didn't know them. I just heard about them. And then my friend was like, how could you take that name? And I was like, but they didn't use it.
Yeah. With the first TV show that I wrote, I named all the characters after my friends because I didn't have any imagination for names. And then when they all saw it, I mean, it was actually kind of like a party game because they were like, wait a second, like, why did I die? Why did my character die or whatever? And I was like, it was random. We just needed names, and every time I ran out of a name, I would just throw another name of somebody else I knew into it. So, yeah, names are hard.
They are really hard.
Violet Scheidegger.
It's such a good name,
It
right?
is a good name. It's a great name.
I know. I don't know what they did name that child, and they probably would never tell me because they're scared.
It wasn't as good as Violet Scheidegger, so they saw that, they thought, shit.
We messed up. We should have written that
There's
baby
no
in
going-
second person.
There's no going back for Violet Scheidegger. Wow. Any more questions from the audience?
What are we doing time-wise?
I think we are.
I think
yeah,
we're
we've
at
out
it.
of time.
We've done it.
But
Okay. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you
doing
so
this.
much.
Thank you.
I just want to watch like funny videos. I mean, it's like, next time we just show lots and lots of videos. I mean, they're just getting better now.